Namaste. I'm not sure. I think this session might have started a little while ago. Somehow something has not quite gone right in terms of starting the session. I hope everything is okay. So we'll assume you are able to see this. Let's start with a small prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So let us chant, excuse me for just 1 second. Let's chant number 20 and then (29), 30 and 31. Asti bhati priyam rupam nama chetyam shapanchakam adyatrayam brahma rupam Jagat Rupam Tato Dvayam. Number 29. Stapti Bhavo Rasa Swadat Tritiyam Purvamanmataha Etai Samadhibhi Shadbhihi Nityakalam Ninantaram. Dehabhimane Galite Vigyate Paramatmani Yatra Yatra Mano Yati Tatra Tatra Samadhayaha Bhidyate Hridaya Granthi Chidyante Sarva Samshaya Kshiyante Chasya Karmani Tasmin Drishte Paravare. So we had started this verse number 31, which is the culmination of the main text up to now. And in many cases, this is all that is taught, 1 through 31. And so in reviewing the rest of the verses, I think 15 more verses, which Swami Viditatmananda has also included in his book, I think it might be good, as I mentioned, I'm just repeating myself, to have a quick repetition of the entire text in the form of these 15 verses. I won't go through it in such detail as I did in the before, but it'll be good to take another view of the same concepts per se. So this is, as I mentioned, is an important verse which is often quoted at different places. And it says that Bhidyate Hridaya Granthi and Chidyante Sarva Samshayaha Kshiyante Asya Karma Cha Asya Karmani Tasmin Drishte Paravare. So very quickly revision from last week, that once a clear idea about para and avara are seen, once this is clearly seen, then 3 things happen. One is Hridaya Granthi Chidyante. The knots of the heart are cut. This is the first thing. The second thing is Chidyante Sarva Samshaya. All doubts are removed. And then third one is kshiyante cha asya karmani. That all the tendencies that you have, karma here means tendencies to do something. Because in our life, if you analyze it, our life consists of tendencies to do something. So the life is nothing but a series of decisions, of desires, and fulfillment of desires. This is what happens continuously. You are done with something. Okay, now I have prepared breakfast. So what's next? Let's do something else. So then there is a tendency to do something else. When that is done, then the next one comes up. So this is what called karma. It's always action-oriented. Life is an action-oriented thing. Does it have to be this way? Of course, yeah. What would life be without any actions? What will I do? You may not do anything, but you will be. It's the beingness of ourselves that we have to think about. Because I don't think about the beingness. I'm a doer. Well, you are a doer for what? Well, I don't know, just to improve things, And this is how I'm made up, and I just have to do something. Have you paused enough to see whether you need to do anything? Well, how will that pause do? What is going to happen to me? A lot will happen to you if you just look into your status without doing anything. Anyway, I won't go into much more detail on that. So this tendency to do something and just be satisfied with where you are is called kshiyante cha asya karmani. So anyway, just to summarize the essence of this verse, it means that once the para and avara are clearly seen, then three things happen. One is the knots of the heart are cut. I'll go into what the knots of the heart mean in a minute. Secondly, all my doubts are removed. And the third one is that my karmas all dissolve. I don't have any karmas. I don't have any tendency to do something. These are the three things happen. So in the last class, we were looking at the fourth quarter of this verse, which is Tasmin Drishte Paravare. So I described to you the para and avara. This is really just a crucial part to understand, which is that there are two parts to us. I wouldn't say parts, but two aspects to us. So one is the superior and one is the inferior. And in fact, a much better way to look at it is the inferior. So superior, inferior, in what sense? One can ask. What do you mean by superior? Better. And inferior, worse. How is anything better and worse? Really, the best way to look at it is that one which is superior is real, and one which is inferior is not as real. It appears to be real, but it is not as real. And we are really a combination of the two. We're a combination of the two, as I have become one of my favorite examples, that of the electricity and the appliance. So in that sense, I am a mixture of the two. I'm a mixture of electricity, which in this example, I just want to show you that, is independent, and it is common to all the appliances, and it is independent of time. It is independent of any shocks that might occur in the appliance. It is independent of any happenings in the appliance, things breaking down, etc. So similarly here also, so my body-mind complex, as I mentioned, I think somewhere is a very sophisticated computer. It's an appliance, and in the appliance has both the hardware as well as the software. And the software consists of memories, old memories that come up, and something is happening, some pictures are, sound is happening, pictures are being displayed. This is the software. And in the hardware all these things are happening. So I am like a changing appliance. And the changing appliance is powered by the electricity. And then if the computer has some awareness, okay, if the computer had an awareness, the electricity is also not only electricity but also an awareness, then the computer awareness will say, I am a functioning appliance. I am enjoying this, I am doing something, I am performing some function, but at the same time I am also vulnerable. It knows it. It knows it because somebody can pull the plug and I am done. I do not have any life after that. Or if something should malfunction, then also I am done. I cannot function after that. So this is the appliance is the avara. It is the inferior parts of me. And the electricity is the para, which is the superior part of me. Right? So that means says that once the two parts of myself are clearly seen through this Viveka, through this Drg Drsya Viveka, where you say that, listen, you are two things. You are a Drik and you are a Drishya. You are a seer and you are a seen. And both of them are mixed up. And please see that there are two things involved here. Once this is seen, then these three things happen, which is Vidyante, Hridaya Granthi, etc., etc. Okay, so let's proceed along those lines. So in this example, I had recited to you a very good illustration by Swami Maheshanandji, which says that suppose you have the sun reflected in some puddles of water. So there we sought only one puddle of water. In the Purusha Suktam class, I had expanded it to multiple puddles. So let's not go into that. That's a separate dimension. So that has to do with the social person, the Samaja Purusha in that class. But let's just keep it to one puddle. Okay? All right. So now here is the analogy, and in fact what I wanted to do was to read a question that one of the students had asked me. She had asked me not to reveal who she is, which I will honor her. Anyway, she was saying, she started by saying that I am so enjoying the Drg Drsya Viveka class. I am sorry that it is coming to an end and looking forward to your review, which is good. Then she ends this by saying, in the analogy of the pool of water that evaporates, if I am but a reflection, once that pool of water evaporates, I am gone, as though it was never there. My answer is that I was the sun all along, but somehow that feels incomplete to me. Can you help me understand this and articulate this better? So a fair question, good question. So the answer to that is that, examples are not perfect. So you have to kind of extend it a little bit. You cannot apply it in all, otherwise it is not an example. You see? So, but anyway, if you're willing to extend the example in the manner that I am pointing out, then I think you will get more out of it. So our situation is, so both the appliance electricity example and the sun and the puddle of water example should be seen in parallel. They are equivalent to each other. How? Let's look at it. So consider for a moment that the sun reflected in the puddle of the water is the only view that I have. This is what I see. Is myself seem completely evaluating myself as the reflecting sun in the puddle of water. And it is exactly the same as electricity functioning in the appliance. So they are equivalent examples. Let's go back to the puddle of water. We'll stick to that for a while. So my evaluation about myself is that I am a light which is nice, which is beautiful, and it is reflected in my experience. And so the puddle of water is providing me with some changes. So what I find is that as the reflected sun, I am vulnerable to the things around me, right? And so so one can say that if the puddle of water gets dirty, if the water gets dirty and the sun is not able to reflect very well, it is very much like my mind is not clean. Not clean meaning that, so the mind is the reflecting surface, and if it is full of strong desires and reactions to other people, I can get angry. Once that happens, then my consciousness reflected in my mind becomes disturbed. And so if I'm disturbed by the happenings of what's happening in Washington, for example, then I'm very disturbed. And so my mind also becomes disturbed, and my calmness, which is the sun clearly showing me who I am, gets disturbed. This is the dirty water. Or suppose that there is not a dirty water, but also some changes in the water. Some wind comes in and it breaks up the reflection. I may not get angry, but I may get worried about my future. My health is suffering. And I'm thinking I'm going to be gone. In any case, my evaluation is purely as a reflected sun in the puddle of water. Okay, this is how we all are at this point in time. We are all reflections of the Atma in this world, evaluating ourselves. I'm moving, I'm angry, I'm hopeful, I'm okay, I go to sleep, I wake up. All those kinds of things are like the reflected sun in the puddle of this life. Okay, so this is our initial stages. Then some guru comes into the picture and says, wait, you're missing a very important piece. Don't you see you are the reflection of the sun? What that means is there is a sun who is creating this reflection, who's causing this reflection to take place, but there is a difference between itself and its reflection. The sun is independent, the reflection is dependent. So now please elevate your sight, not just to be purely looking at the reflection, but also look at how the reflection is being caused. Do you please follow me to say that can you see the sun, which is unchanging, which is the very source of this, which is real? And do you see the difference between them? There is a unreflected sun and a reflected sun. So the unreflected sun is the para, and the reflected sun is the avara. The unreflected sun, the real sun, is in fact Paramatma. And you are taking yourself as a Jivatma. Don't you see that? Don't you see both of them? Through the Viveka. So this takes a while. I'm not able to follow it right away. But this is in fact the direction I need to think. And the more I look at it, the more I think about it and so on, now I have a clear view of both of them. Okay? Now, if that happens, if I have a clear view of both of them, and so through our, all the Saguna Upasana that we did, the Nirguna Upasana that we did, and then the meditations that we did. So all that was for me to understand that I can be the pure sun. It gives you the actual experience. It's not just something academic, not just theoretical. I can be the independent, unobstructed, unedited myself. So this is the Asti Bhati Priyam. I'm always there. So this is the para view. And then I can immediately see that I have the avara view. This is the Vedantic meditation, Nididhyasanam, that you are encouraged. As soon as you see that you can be independent of any thoughts, feelings, anything like that, you are independent, And the very next moment, you can open your eyes and you can begin to think. And while you are opening your eyes and beginning to think, you also see that you don't disappear. The completeness of yourself is still there, but superimposed on top of that, there is this feeling, I am this. You are what you are, but you are not this. But you can experience that I become this. My mind becomes me. My eyes become me. Or you can experience I can be without the mind and the eyes. Both of them. So this is the simultaneous, although literally simultaneous viewing of the real and the unreal. Isn't it? Please see this. So, the analogy in this example that Swami Maheshananji gives is that at first you were only thinking I am the reflection, which is what our life is all about at the moment. Then with the help of the teaching and the Shastra, I am saying, don't you see that there are two of you? There is this is the sun, the original sun, and the reflected sun. The original sun and the reflected. Don't you see that? Eventually I am able to see both of them. I can keep them separate, I can mix them up, but I am able to see them. Before that I couldn't see them. So now I have so from one object, which is a reflected sun, which is like an appliance, I now have a clear distinction between the unmixed sun, the original sun, as well as the reflected sun, both of them. This is what is called tasmin drishte paravare. If this becomes clear and it comes from repeated, this is abhyasa. This is abhyasa. So interesting, it has a lot of implications on those three things, sarva samshaya, etc. I'll come to that in a minute, but so this is called abhyasa. Abhyasa means being able to replicate it again and again. Very much like what science does to prove the validity of anything. It must be repeatable. Even this vaccine for COVID, it must be repeatable. It must show this is exactly what it is. It's some new experiment in a crucible. It must be repeated, and if it comes up again and again and again, you know it is not theory, it is really true. Similarly here also, tasmin drishte paravare means not just one casual thing, but to be able to see this repeatedly, then some wonderful things happen. And so then to complete the analogy of the sun and the reflected sun, let's finish that. And now we will go to the application of this in these three elements that I talked about. Vidyate, chidyante, kshiyante, all those. But to finish this example, what was really beautiful is that Swami Maheshananji said, listen, so you have two entities that needed to have a prefix. One was the original sun and the reflected sun. So there is a prefix to sun which is original, and a prefix to sun which is reflected. Now, if for some reason, if for some way, and this is a very beautiful thing because the original sun's heat is the one that can dry up the puddle of water. And one can see this as the power of the teaching. Because the teaching is a very powerful thing. It can do something. All teachings do something. Here the teaching's powerfulness dries up the puddleness of your water. If that happens, then you know what happens? You don't have the prefixes left anymore. The prefixes are only valid if there are two suns involved, multiple suns involved. Then you have to say this is the original sun, this is the reflected sun. But if the puddle disappears, there is no need to call original sun. It becomes just the sun. You see, beautiful example. Just the sun. So we finished the last class by saying, right now there is a Jivatma and then there is the Paramatma. These are prefixes. Atma is like the sun, but one of them is Paramatma, which is the original Atma, and the other one is the Jivatma, which is a reflected Atma. And if through thinking and clearly viewing it and through abhyasa, repeated testing the hypotheses until it becomes absolutely clear, then Paramatma disappears, Jivatma disappears, and you know what remains? Atma. Just Atma. So this is the process. This is what this is the funny creation. It's a non-creation, but just to have a reflection, it's fun to have multiplicity. So the Ishvara becoming many, one person become many, was just creating copies of it. That's it. You remove the copies, you go to one. You create the copies and you now have a mixture of the real and the unreal. This is what the whole Srishti is all about. Okay. Now, having said that, let's move on to the application of the Tasmin Drishte Paravire. So, this is what is called in Sanskrit, in the language, called Sati Saptami. Sati Saptami means Tasmin Drishte Sati. What that means is, this being the case, what being the case? Drishte paravare, parascha avarascha paravare, dual construct in Sanskrit. Dual construct means once both of them are seen together. You see, this is an important thing, because supposing you see sun separately and then you see the reflected sun separately, you cannot connect them. But if you are able to see both the sun as well as the reflected sun simultaneously, this is why, for example, all of the meditations that are given In fact, we can go back to the previous verse. Very beautiful. Deha abhimane galite. So, look at this. Deha abhimane galite in the verse number 30 can correspond to the reflected puddle, the puddle of water drying up. Exactly what happens. Deha abhimane galite means that once the identification of myself as a limited body-mind complex is gone. Clearly is gone means when I'm clearly seen. Vigyate paramatmani. Then I go into I dissolve into Paramatma. So the reflected sun gets dissolved into the real self. I was always the real self, but I didn't see it. That's it. I saw myself as a reflected sun until I could see both the reflected sun and the real sun, and I am now only the sun. S-U-N. In that manner, yatra yatra manoyati tatra tatra samadhaya. Then, even if a reflection should reappear, it doesn't bother me. And so we will actually now see the aspect of that in terms of Shiyante asya karmani and so on. So I think we are, hopefully that is quite clear to you in terms of the explanation of tasmin drishte sati paravare. Then what happens now comes into being. So let's go into that. For that I'm going to borrow the explanations of Swami Maheshananji, which was given in chapter 11 of Panchadashi and verse number 7. You can remember it as 7:11. Same one. Vidyate hridaya granthi. The same thing occurs in Mundaka Upanishad. And in Mundaka Upanishad it is 2.2.8 if you're following the Mundaka Upanishad. And in the Panchadashi it is 11.7. The same thing that we are doing here in the 31st verse. Vidyate hridaya granthi. Okay. Now let us look at each one of these three. I think we should be done by 11 o'clock, all three of them. If not, we'll go to the next class, but I think we should be done. There's quite a bit to explain here actually, so it's very possible that I may not be completely done. Let us look at the first one, which is called Vidyate Hridaya Granthi. So Granthi means the knot, K-N-O-T, knot. When two things are mixed up together, or not mixed up, but two things are tied together, it's called a knot. So Hridaya Granthi means, so the Hridaya here means my innate conclusion, my firm conclusion, not make-believe, not speculative, but a very well-formed conclusion about myself. And so what is this conclusion? This is called the knot of my thinking. The mixing up of two things into one. This is the knot of the heart. So here Swami Maheshanji says, this is very interesting. You see what a knot does? Not make believe, not speculative, but a very well formed conclusion about myself. And so what is this conclusion? This is called the knot of my thinking. The mixing up of two things into one. This is the knot of the heart. So here Swami Maheshanji says, this is very interesting. You see what a knot does? is to put together two things that cannot do something separately. Right? Supposing you are you're going on a trip and you want to put something on the roof rack of your car. You want to put some box that doesn't fit into the trunk of the car and you want to put it on the roof rack. So in order to make sure that the object doesn't fly away when you are driving, you have to tie it to the roof rack of the car. Hopefully you have it and you have to tie it. So you look at a string or a rope, let's say a rope, and you find that the rope is not long enough for this box to be completely tied to the roof rack of the car. So what you do is you take two ropes and you make a very firm knot from both of them. Firm knot means a double knot. The minimum of firm knot is a double knot. Hopefully triple, but let's say a double knot. So you may have learned how to do that. When I was a Boy Scout in my early days, we were taught this. It's called reef knot. So the reef knot is that you do it once, and then you do it the opposite way, and then you tighten it. And the more it pulls apart, the tighter it gets. This is called a double knot. So here the main thing is that the two single knots, the two single ropes could not do this function which this combined rope will do. So now here's the thing. So let's look at this clearly. There are two things involved. One is my appliance. Appliance meaning the body and the mind and sense organs and prana, all the physiological functions, everything that I possess, everything that I can see is mine. It's called my things. Everybody has the same thing. So we have a body, we have fingers, we can see, we can hear. Now, it is well known and it can be easily shown that the movement and the power of my appliance only comes from the power of my consciousness. It is by itself jada. Jada means inert. By itself it is inert, but when it has the ability to reflect it. So it's a polished thing. So for example, when the sun is falling on the wall, it doesn't reflect because the wall is not polished. But suppose you polish the wall very carefully, it starts to reflect the light. So even though the mirror is also just not a source of light by itself, but if it has been polished, it can reflect the light as though it's a light. And really speaking, sometimes the sun reflected out of a mirror can blind you. It's so powerful. It is almost like an exact replica of the sun. So therefore, what I'm saying is that all the equipment that I possess by itself is not functioning. Is exactly what happens when a person dies. When a person dies, then the reflectability of the body and the mind goes away. So the consciousness is still there, but the body mind is no longer has the ability to reflect, and so it just stays there. Shankara in his one of the books says that, it says that a wife loves her husband. Not all wives love their husbands. So suppose we construct this case where the wife loves her husband. Okay? Now, the question is, what portion of the husband does she love? Does she love his mind, his body, or something else? So Shankara says it is very clear she doesn't love his mind and body. Why not? Because the moment that person leaves the body and mind, and this thing becomes like a corpse, she becomes very afraid of it. Imagine that a person dies after it has been ascertained that the life has gone out of it. Everyone will be scared about that. Just a dead body there. Especially if this woman is alone in the home, she's going to probably go out and call someone and say, I can't stay here. This is the same person that she was in love with just a minute ago. So it's clearly she doesn't love the body, she doesn't love the mind, she loves something else, some Atma along with it. Point is that the equipment that we have is inert. And inert things, and in fact if the body is left there, it will start to smell. Like this is what happens when we, once in a while, this happened just recently, when we saw that there was a skunk smell somewhere from the down below. And so for a while I thought it was a skunk that would come in and will go away. But the smell never really went away, it was there. So I had to call an animal control person, and he says, he took one thing, he says it's a dead skunk. He was so experienced that he could tell the difference between a live skunk and a dead skunk. So the way the skunk does is that once it dies, it allows that sac of this terrible smell to be burst. And then the smell just gets worse for a few days. So this fellow had to come in and he had to find the skunk underneath somewhere in the basement and take it away, the dead body. Anyway, the point is that one rope which is inert, one is an inert rope that by itself cannot do anything. So the body and mind needs the reflection to be able to do something. By itself is this jada. The other rope is the Atma, which cannot do anything. The self, the Atma, cannot do anything. Why cannot do anything? Why is it that that's the case? Because it's not made up of something like the appliance. By itself it cannot do anything. It needs the appliance to express itself. It cannot move, it cannot change. It is just there. So now we have two parts of the rope that by themselves cannot do anything. One part of the rope is, there are two ropes actually, not two parts of the rope. One rope is inert body-mind complex, and the other one is the Chaitana Vastu, which is I am alive. I have consciousness. But the consciousness by itself cannot do anything. But when I combine them, then things happen. Okay? So this is exactly what happens. The electricity by itself cannot move things. The appliance by itself cannot function. But if you run the electricity through the appliance, then you have heaters and air conditioners and fans and all kinds of funny stuff that can be done. So now, here's the situation. The first effect of Tasmin Drishte Paravare is Hridaya Granthi is Bhidyate. Hridaya Granthi is Bhidyate. What does it mean? It means the knots of the heart are broken because there is a double knot between the consciousness which cannot do anything and an appliance which is the body-mind complex that cannot function by itself, but they are mixed up together, and in fact there is a double knot. Why is there a double knot? Because the body-mind gets the reflection of the Atma and becomes very powerful. Now I feel I can do things. I can move, I can change, I can see things. So the body-mind becomes powerful, and it gets the power from the Atma. The Atma, on the other hand, gets the quality of the body-mind. The Atma becomes qualified by the body-mind. Qualified means what? So the Atma is like space. It is always there, never changing, independent of time, having no fears, but it takes on the limitations and fears and the qualities of the body-mind. So here's the double knot. So this is what is called, there are two kinds of adhyasa. Adhyasa means superimposition. One is called Swarupa Adhyasa and the other one is called Samsarga Adhyasa. So the Swarupa Adhyasa is the body-mind impinging on the Atma and making it limited. So your Swarupa itself is now in question. Swarupa means your own reality, and that reality is not independent of time, it becomes dependent of time. This is called Swarupa Adhyasa. Then you have the Samsarga Adhyasa, where the body-mind become the very powerful, and it relegates the Atma as though it is not there at all. So there is a double knot. They both reinforce each other. So the one single knot can easily break, but here, because it has been done twice, it becomes very difficult to break them. That's exactly why the Atma Vidya, the Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of the self and so on is not easy, because you have a double knot, a double adhyasa, a double error, which reinforce each other. You see, this is another way to look at it. It is said that, if so, the darkness has an effect of hiding the truth of something, isn't it? So what darkness does is to hide the reality of something. If the room is dark, then you don't know whether, if you go to a new place like a hotel or something like this, you don't know where the furnitures are. You can bump into one and get hurt. So the darkness has a way of hiding the reality. So this is what is called avarana. So avarana means to hide the reality of something. But much more harmful than that is vikshepa, which means a projection of something. How? Because an avarana can be immediately removed by light. You go to a hotel room and it's very dark and you don't know where the bathroom is and where the chairs are. But if you can find a switch, you just turn it on and instantly you have now a very clear idea of what the room looks like, what you should do. You cannot trip over anything. You should not trip over anything. But in the case of a vikshepa, it is much more dangerous, because you not only are you hiding, you're projecting. You're projecting and you're taking a wrong conclusion. So this is why the example of the rope and snake is so important, because in the case of a rope which is hidden by the darkness, there is no problem. You don't know there is a rope, you don't know anything, so there's no problem. You're not fearful. But suppose there is light but inadequate light. In that case, there is a possibility of not only not understanding rope, which is avarana, but you misunderstand it to be something else, which is vikshepa. So now if your mind projects to something, then it says this is dangerous, because now you are fearful, even though it is still wrong, but it makes the wrong thing makes you fearful. So similarly is the case in the Hridaya Granthi, that if you knew that you were just not the Atma, there'll be no problem. There'll be no problem. In fact, exactly what happens deep at night time. In the night time, there is no vikshepa, there is no projection, there is only avarana, there is only the hiding of the Atma. But the hiding of the Atma creates no problem. You are comfortably sleeping. But if you were to find out that while you were sleeping, all your valuables have been stolen away, when you wake up, you find, oh my gosh, you're in trouble. So that's when vikshepa takes place. So similarly here we can conclude this one of the three things, and that is that if you only knew you were not the Atma, you'd be okay. But you now have vikshepa, which means that instead of not instead of knowing Atma accurately, you take the Anatma as to be yourself. And it seems to work also, because you're functioning normally in the life and so on, and you feel I'm okay, I'm all right. So it leads you further astray, further astray, further astray, until one day you are in trouble. Your body is breaking down, or there is an earthquake, or there is a huge upheaval in the society, whatever. Then you now become really troubled. And so this is called vikshepa. So if you do the tasmin drishte paravare, if you know both of them, then this knot of the heart is cut. You don't have this idea that I am a limited being. You continue to feel I am an unlimited being. And so you see that I am the electricity. I was falsely accusing myself to be vulnerable because of this appliance. I am really not touchable by the appliance. So this is what is called Bhidyate Hridaya Granthi. Okay? Then the second thing that happens, and I think we can just spend a few more minutes on that, is, and then the third one, which is Kshiyante Chasya Karmani, we'll do next week. But the second thing that happens is Chidyante Sarva Samshayaha. All my doubts are removed. Doubts are removed. Because the doubts don't allow myself to clearly see who I am. I may have a glimpse of it here and there, but the glimpses are not enough. I need to remove all doubts completely. So Swami Maheswaranji gives this example. He says, you ask somebody, where is this Main Street church? Where's the Main Street church? I'm making it into a US example. He has given an Indian example. He says, where is the Sher Shah Road Mandir? So I'm just saying Main Street church. So somebody, you're new to the town and you're asking, where is the Main Street church? Somebody says, oh, well, these days, of course, you have GPS. But now people will say, okay, right, when you go to the second light, turn left. That is the Main Street. Then I believe it's I'm not quite sure, but I think it's the fourth block. You will see a church on the left-hand side. And that has written Catholic Church on it says Catholic Church. So it's the fourth block, but I am not absolutely certain. I think it's the third or the fourth block. So this is, you now start walking, okay, or you're driving, whatever. So you come to the light, you turn left, you haven't seen the church yet. Then first or 2-3 blocks go by and so on. You're still not sure. You still have some doubts about where it is. Then you see the church on the left-hand side. And now all those directions are gone. And you have a direct view where it says Catholic Church right there. This is where I wanted to go. So this is called removal of doubts. Similarly here also, I had doubts. People were saying, you're the Atma, you're the Anatma, you are limited, you're unlimited. And I have faith in the directions that are being given to me. but I haven't seen it yet. But once I follow through with the meditative practices and I'm able to see tasmin drishte paravare, then what is called, I have a sakshat view which is bereft of all doubts. There's no doubts at all. This is called sakshat aparokshat brahma. So this is what is called sarva samshayaha chidyante. Once you see the Catholic Church on the fourth block after you turn, you are there. It is no longer any speculation. Was it the third one or the fourth one? Because that person himself was not sure. So he gave you an approximate idea, but now I'm here, I can see it. So this is the second effect that happens on tasmin drishte paravare. Then the third thing that happens is kshiyante asya karmani. This is also a very beautiful discussion, and we will look into that next week. And with that, our 31st is complete, the whole text is complete, and then we will do a quick revision from verse number 32 onwards. Okay? All right. So with that, let's do a small prayer. Om asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purname adaya purnamevavashishyate. Om shanti shanti shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. I'm not sure, my voice is breaking up. I think I have allergies because it's not going away. I have to really do something about it. It's been low grade voice for quite a while. Okay, let us see. Is sakshat wonderful to see. So many of you that are watching this second class along with the first one. It must be tough on you. Easy for me to talk, but to listen to so many of you from the first class. So nice to see all of you. And there is one new name that I have not seen before. Pungothai Langowan. If you can kindly send me an email just introducing yourself, I would very much appreciate it. And wonderful to see so many of you. And let's see if there's any questions on your part. I think I get a lot of very positive response on studying the Drg Drsya Viveka. And I'm very happy about that, really, because it's one of my favorite texts and gives a very broad, general but an advanced look at Vedanta, and one that can use it as a foundational text to study again and again. And we're not done yet. I think when we revise it, it'll consolidate things. So I'm very happy that many of you feel the same way. And good. All right. If there aren't any questions, then I take your leave, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Om Hari Om.